Stop watering your tomato leaves at sunset. That one habit you know just grabbing the hose after dinner can turn a healthy 6-foot plant into a brown skeleton in under 2 weeks. 11 days, that's all it takes. And here's the thing. Most gardeners do it every single evening without ever connecting the dots. So I spent the last week digging through university research extension reports and what the gardening community is buzzing about right now. And I pulled out the 5 June mistakes that are quietly wrecking tomato plants everywhere. Every single one has a zero-cost fix. Nice and simple. There's a reason perfectly healthy plants just collapse. No warning. It isn't the heat. It isn't pests. It's one small thing sitting right there in your evening routine and nobody talks about it. Now, at about the 4-minute mark, I'll get to the mistake that kills a plant the fastest. Plus, a free 30-second fix that typically stops it cold. You might want to keep that one handy. Everything breaks down into 3 groups. Quick and simple, Group 1 water. 2 of the worst killers hide here, including that fast one I just mentioned. Group 2 feeding. The one nutrient mistake that hands you a gorgeous, useless plant, covered in leaves and almost no fruit. Group 3, air and heat. A pruning error most people skip, plus the mistake that quietly costs you the most fruit the moment your nights stay warm. And stick around to the end. I've put together a 4-step wet June defense routine. It's the kind of thing experienced gardeners have quietly passed along for years, and it's built for exactly the kind of wet June we're standing in right now. Let's get into water. Here's the thing about water. It's free, but using it wrong will cost you your entire harvest. 2 of the 5 killers in this video hide in your evening watering routine. Get water right, and you've already won most of the battle. Get it wrong, and I mean your plants are running out of time without showing a single symptom. Mistake number 1. Blossom end rot. You've probably seen the photo. A perfect green tomato with an ugly black, sunken patch on the bottom. Most gardeners panic. They run out and buy expensive fungicides. Don't. Save your money. That black spot. Not a fungus. It's a water problem pretending to be a calcium problem. That, right there, that's the culprit. Now, I dug into the research on this one. UGA Extension and a 2014 Hort Science study by Barrickman pinned it down years ago. Calcium moves through the plant in the xylem. Think of it like the plumbing inside the stem. Same pipes that carry water. When the soil dries out, then floods, the plant strands that calcium right where it stopped. It just gets stuck. In June, when temperatures spike past 85, a tomato plant can drink 2 gallons a day. And the fruit pays the price. Not the leaves, just the fruit. Here's the fix, and it costs you nothing. Water deep water once. Soak the root zone to about 6 inches every 2 or 3 days, not a little sprinkle every evening. Then lock that moisture in with 2 to 3 inches of straw or shredded leaf mulch. UMass Extension recommends this specifically for blossom end rot. And you know what? The dry leaves you raked up last fall do the exact same job as the bag of mulch at the store. Free. Now the one I promised at the start. The mistake at the 4-minute mark. The one that kills a plant the fastest. This is what takes a healthy plant to a brown skeleton in 11 days. 11 days. And most gardeners never see it coming because they do it every June evening without thinking. They grab the hose, they water the leaves. At sunset. Wet leaves, warm night, still air. That's the recipe this disease is waiting for. Mistake number 2. Late blight. It's caused by something called Phytophthora infestans. Kind of a mouthful, I know, but here's why it matters. This is the same organism that triggered the Irish potato famine. And yes, it attacks tomatoes too. Mazziero documented this clearly back in 2009. Once the spores land on a wet leaf and the night stays warm and humid, the plant can collapse in 7 to 14 days. 11 days is dead center in that window. That's not the worst case, that's the average. And here's the part that really gets me. A gardener 2 streets over can do everything else right and still lose a whole bed in under 2 weeks just because someone upwind watered at night and let the spores drift over. You know it's not even your fault, and you still pay for it. The fix is 2 parts, and the first one is free. Water at the soil line in the morning, not on the leaves at night. A cheap soaker hose works, or just aim your regular hose at the base of the stem. Don't overthink it. Oklahoma State Extension is pretty blunt about it. Morning soil watering cuts disease pressure on the leaves way down. Second, if your area is in a wet June, a preventative spray of copper fungicide can hold this back. Bonide liquid copper fungicide is one option, maybe $19 or so for 16 ounces. Now, it is a standard preventative, but always keep the bottle locked away. And wait until the leaves are bone dry before letting your grandkids or dogs back near the vines. Spray every 7 to 10 days according to the label. Once you see brown lesions on the leaves, it's already too late. So that's water. 2 killers handled, and remember, mistake number 2 is the fast one. 11 days. But the next mistake doesn't show on the leaves or the fruit. It shows up as a plant that looks far too good to be true. Mistake number 3. Now this one's sneaky, because for the first few weeks it looks like a win. Your tomato plant explodes in size. Dark green leaves, thick stems. You feel proud every time you walk past it. The neighbors start commenting on how impressive this guy looks. Then July arrives, and there's almost no fruit on the vine. Just leaves. Here's what's going on. Too much nitrogen. I went through the research from UC Davis Extension and a 2002 Hort Science study by Schwartz, and the pattern is really clear. When nitrogen stays high after flowering begins, the plant pours all its energy into new shoots instead of fruit. All that new growth acts like a drain. It pulls calcium and water away from the flower clusters. Flowers weaken. Some just drop on their own. The ones that hang on, they set very few tomatoes. UMass Extension saw the same thing in their field trials. Think of it like a teenager who only grows taller and never matures. The plant is putting everything into looking impressive on the outside and saving nothing for the actual job making tomatoes. Pretty, impressive, useless. Quick aside before the fix. If this lazy gardener approach is working for you, I dig up a new trick like this every week. Doesn't have to be fancy, just stuff that actually works. And the biggest piece is still ahead. The 4-step rain defense routine, the thing most June videos leave out. That's coming up next. Stick around, because that's the piece you really came for. Back to feeding. The fix is simple, and it saves you money too. Stop using high nitrogen fertilizer the moment the first flowers open. From that point forward, switch to a balanced, slow-release blend with calcium built in. Espoma Tomato Tone is one solid option. It's a 3-4-6 formula with about 8% calcium. Maybe $16 for a 4-pound bag. Enough to feed a small bed for the rest of the season. Apply at the rate on the bag. Reapply every 4 to 6 weeks. Nice and easy. The plant slows its leaf push and starts directing that energy into flowers and fruit. The vine still looks healthy, but now it actually feeds you. Water handled. Feeding handled. The last 2 killers don't start in the soil. They start in the air around your plants. Here's where it gets serious. The single mistake that costs you more fruit than the other 4 combined is sitting in this last group, and almost nobody warns you about it. I'll get to that 1 second, but first, the surprising part. The lush, thick, healthy-looking plant you're most proud of. That's the one most likely to rot. Let me break it down. Mistake number 4. Most gardeners look at a thick, dense tomato plant and see success. But experienced growers in the community, they look at that same plant and see a humidity trap. A canopy that thick holds moisture inside for hours after the morning dew. The leaves never fully dry, and every fungus we just talked about, late blight, all of it, loves leaves that stay wet. This is the mistake nobody thinks about in June. No pruning. I went through reports from Iowa State Extension and a 2024 North Carolina State study, and the pattern is kind of wild. Tomato plants left untrimmed in June trap so much moisture inside that morning dew can sit on the lower leaves until past noon. That's half the day. And that's the exact window late blight and septoria, another leaf fungus, need to move in. The fix takes 10 minutes a week and the tool is cheap. Prune off every leaf within 12 inches of the soil. Pinch out the suckers. Those are the small shoots growing in the V between the main stem and each branch. Then tie the main stem to a stake or trellis so the plant grows up, not out. A simple bypass pruner, maybe $15, is all you need. 10 minutes. That's it. Mistake number 5. Now this is the one nobody warns you about, and here's how it's different from the others. Mistake number 2 kills the plant the fastest, right? 11 days. But this one, leaves the plant alive and green while it quietly stops giving you tomatoes. In a heat wave, it costs you more fruit than the other 4 mistakes combined. Here's what happens. When daytime temperatures pass 92 degrees and nights stay above 75, tomato pollen basically shuts down. It turns sterile. Flowers open, bees show up. Everything looks normal. But no fruit sets. Just flowers falling off the plant a week later. Gone. The gardening community calls this heat-induced blossom drop, and it's not something you can fix with a spray or a fertilizer. A 2012 paper by Buter documented the exact thresholds, 92 and 75. Those are your numbers. And Oklahoma State and Ohio State Extension confirm the same thing in field trials across the South. June heat waves are getting longer every year. This mistake is going to hit more gardens than ever. And here's the honest truth. There's no product for this. No bottle, no bag. It's just heat. Now the promise from the top of the video. The 4-step wet June defense. Step 1. Mulch deep. 3 inches of straw or shredded leaf. We covered this back in part 1, and remember, those raked leaves are free. It does double duty, locks moisture in and stops spores from splashing up onto the leaves. Simple. Step 2. Prune for airflow. 12 inches clear at the soil line suckers pinched and a vertical stake. This is the one most gardeners skip in June because the plant looks healthy. Don't skip it. You skip this and you've basically built yourself a humidity chamber. Step 3. Preventative spray, but only if your region is in a wet June. Either copper fungicide on a 7 to 10 day rotation or a biological like Bacillus subtilis that's a natural beneficial bacteria if you prefer an organic route. Both are recommended by University of Arkansas Extension and University of Kentucky Extension. The key here, apply before symptoms show up, not after. And the same safety rule, keep the bottle locked away and wait until the leaves are completely dry before letting pets or kids back near the bed. Step 4. Resistant varieties. 3 names to remember: Defiant, Iron Lady, and Mountain Merit. Penn State trials in 2024 ranked these guys among the strongest against late blight. Plant one right next to your favorite heirloom and let it stand guard. That's your insurance policy. And that's the 4-step defense most June videos leave out. So here's the thing. June tomato failure isn't 100 mysterious problems in your soil. It's 3 habits. Water deep at the soil line, never on the leaves at sunset. Feeding balanced and dialed back the moment the first flowers open. Air and heat pruned for airflow with a resistant variety standing guard in case the weather turns. 2 weeks from now, the gardener next door is going to be ripping out a brown skeleton. 11 days, that's all it took. But you're going to be standing next to a trellis full of healthy fruit. The difference isn't luck. It's not a secret variety. It's not insider knowledge. It's 3 habits you now know and a 4-step routine you can start running tomorrow morning. Drop your USDA zone in the comments and tell me which of these 5 mistakes hit your garden hardest last June. I read every single one. If this one earned, it hit subscribe. I'm breaking down wet July squash failure next. Same approach, same kind of deep dive into what actually works. And if you want to go deeper, the full Lazy Gardener Fertilizer Guide is the first link in the description. It pairs really well with everything we just covered. Your tomatoes don't need luck this June. They need morning water, open air, and steady feeding. And one gardener who finally knows what to stop doing. Grow better tomatoes, save a little money, and have some fun with it. Happy gardening!